All right, we're at our last two chapters, so this will be ending the book. Um, so we last read, I ran away from Kimberly. I grabbed a ball and threw it at the other team as hard as I could. So she's feeling a little bit frustrated. And it seems like Kimberly is trying to be friends with her. I mean, giving her coat and asking her questions and things like that. But she doesn't, Janie is not responding really to any of her friendship. Okay, chapter 11. On Thursday morning, when I woke up, there was a beautiful purple sweater hanging on my closet door. It had a pink heart right smack in the middle of the front, and there wasn't a single letter on it spelling out a name, mine or anyone else's. I held the sweater up to my cheek, and I felt how soft and warm it was. And then I carefully folded up and put it in my drawer. I put on another sweater, a green one that proclaimed Melinda to the whole world. I hope that you're going through and making some predictions. I wish that you were here so I could just ask you, what do you think's going to happen? What are you predicting? Mama was there frowning as soon as I stepped out of my room. Didn't you see the sweater I made over just for you? She asked. Yes, I said, thanks. But lots of kids are wearing name clothes at my school now with all sorts of names. I started a trend. Really? Mama said. She took a step back. You did? Well, sort of, I said. I didn't think something just Kimberly and I did could really be called a trend, but I felt strangely happy remembering the Allison on Kimberly's ribbon. Then I noticed the dark circles under Mama's eyes, and I felt guilty. Mama hadn't got home from work until after dinner that night, the night before. She must have stayed up really late finishing my other sweater. I knew I should go back and change, but I didn't. That morning during science, I got called out of class to go talk to the guidance counselor, Mrs. Wood. Mrs. Wood was a big woman, really big. If you saw her from behind wearing pants, you might think she was a man, maybe even a football player. But today she was wearing a silky dress with a pink jacket. She had the same kind of smile as Mrs. Burton. Now, don't think you're in any trouble, because you're not, she said as soon as I sat down. I just like to get acquainted with all of Satterthwaite new students. Now your name is, I saw her looking at my sweater. Janie Sams, I said. Ah, she said, still looking at my sweater. I felt like each letter of Melinda was as big as Mrs. Wood. I felt like it was written in neon instead of yarn. Just Janie, Mrs. Wood said. You don't go by a middle name? No, I shook my head. Then why are you wearing that sweater? Mrs. Wood asked. I hadn't even been able to explain that very well to my parents. There was no way I was going to try with Mrs. Wood. Just because, I said. I wanted to. You don't wish you were someone else, do you? Mrs. Wood asked. I thought about that. If I weren't me, who would I be? I thought about the girls who were supposed to get these sweaters, rich kids whose moms or grandmothers maybe hadn't even bothered to pick up what they had ordered. If my mama ordered something for me, should pick it up. I didn't want to be the real Melinda, Claire, Lindsay, or Alexandria. I thought about Kimberly. She had everything. Did I want to be her? Except she didn't understand math, and I did. She got a panicked look on her face every single time Mrs. Burton said, Now, take out your math books. I didn't want to be Kimberly. No, I told Mrs. Wood, I like being me. Something happened behind Mrs. Wood's smile. She kept smiling, but it didn't look the same anymore. I think she thought I was going to say something else. Well, Mrs. Wood said, that's great. When I got back to class, someone had put something on my chair. It was a piece of paper folded over and over until it was smaller than my thumb. I unfolded it in my lap. It was from Kimberly. She had written, I think you could have 500 middle names if you wanted to. I looked over to where Kimberly had her head bent over her science book. Who asked you? I wanted to say. Then I remembered I had, yesterday during gym. I had asked her, what do you think? Kimberly looked up just then, and I stared at her. For once, I just wasn't seeing her clothes. She had pale eyes that looked worried. She had lots of freckles on her cheeks. The corners of her mouth kind of half curled up, like she wanted to smile, but was afraid to. Kimberly wouldn't have lasted a day back at Clyde Elementary. Mean old Chrissy would have torn her to shreds. Cassandra would have talked her to death. Kimberly would have cried when the boys were throwing spitballs. I could really hurt her if I wrote back, "Who asked you?" I pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. "I think you could have 500 middle names too, if you wanted." I wrote carefully, and then I slid the paper across the aisle and watched Kimberly read it. Kimberly smiled, and for the first time since she had given me her coat, I smiled back. I just love this because everybody has a choice every single day to be kind or not to be kind. It's just in a blink of an eye, the decision has to be made. The phone rang that night while we were eating dinner. "Let the answering machine get it," Mama said. "This is family time." But we all listened to the message as it recorded. "Hello, this is James Creston from the specialty shop. I've run into some shipping problems with the sweaters from Mexico, and I'm getting increased demand for name sweaters. Anyhow, I believe we dissolved our business relationship prematurely, and I hoped," so prematurely means early. I didn't hear the rest. I was too busy yelling, "Hooray!" Mama went over and replayed the message again 2 times just to make sure we had heard it right. "You'll make him sign a contract this time, right?" I asked anxiously. Mama was standing there dazed. "I don't know," she said. "Why should he make all the profit from my sweaters?" "He shouldn't," Daddy said. "No," Mama said, "not if I'm doing all the work." "What are you two talking about?" I asked. "Why aren't you calling Mr. Creston back this minute?" I was so impatient I bounced up and down in my chair. "I'm thinking," Mama said. "I'm thinking maybe I should just do this by myself, sell the sweaters on my own." My mouth dropped open. It was a good thing I hadn't put another bite of beef stew in my mouth since Mr. Creston called. But you said you couldn't do that. You said you couldn't afford to get burned again," I said. "It's risky," Mama said, "but I'm not scared anymore." I looked from Mama to Daddy. "Why not?" I said. "Because my daughter believes in me," Mama said. That's a great thing. Chapter 12. On Friday, I wore the plain sweater with a heart on front, no name. Mrs. Burton gave me her biggest smile ever when I walked up the aisle to my seat. "What's wrong, Janie?" Josh Hodgkin taunted. "Did you run out of names?" So he's not the nicest to her. At recess, Kimberly and I played on the monkey bars together. "I'll tell you a secret," I said, when we both sat on the very top, looking out over the whole playground. "What?" Kimberly said eagerly. "I don't even have a middle name." Kimberly jerked back so far she almost fell. "Why not?" she asked when she got her balance back. "When I was born," I said, "my parents said they looked at me and knew I had to be a Janie. It was the perfect name, they said. It was so perfect they didn't want to put a not-so-perfect middle name next to it. They tried out every girl name in the 10,001 baby name book, and none of them was right, so they left the middle name line blank on every form they filled out." I thought about how many times Mama and Daddy had told me that story. I could remember being 3, 4, 5 years old, cuddled up on the couch with Mama and Daddy. Mama's knitting needles were clicking away. The story had the same rhythm as her knitting. "Wow," Kimberly said. "That's even better than having 500 middle names." "Yeah," I said, "it is." I was so glad Kimberly understood. I had never told anyone that story before back at Clyde. I had been scared too. I had been scared someone would think that there was something wrong with me just because I didn't have a middle name. But I knew that Mama and Daddy loved me so much that they would have given me all 10,001 names if they thought I needed them. Just like they had moved me to a new school when they thought I needed that. That's why I had worn the sweaters. I wanted everyone to see what Mama had done for me. "I have a secret too," Kimberly said in a little voice. "What?" I said. Kimberly looked down at the ground far below us. "Remember how I said my best friend moved away?" she asked. "That was Larissa. I missed her so much. After she left, I didn't have any friends in Mrs. Burton's class because I had always done everything with Larissa, and everybody else had already had a best friend. I hadn't thought about that bothering Kimberly too. Kimberly was always talking. But then you moved in, and I thought, she'll be my friend. She has to. But you were good at math. You could do flips on the monkey bars. You were prettier than me. I thought, I'll make her like me. I'll give her a coat. She looks cold. So I gave you a coat, a new coat. I made my mom go out and buy a new coat because I said the new girl was really poor. But then you hated me. The coat Kimberly had given me was new. I blinked in surprise. I thought two things at once. At least now I know that no one ever recognized it. And how dare she? Kimberly had tears in her eyes. I couldn't stay mad. I was wrong, wasn't I? She asked. You're not poor at all, are you? Kimberly took a great gulp of air, and then she looked like she was holding her breath, waiting for an answer. I thought about how Mama and Daddy had never had much money. I thought about how we were going to have even less money than ever now because Mama was going to run her sweater business on her own. And then I thought about how Daddy had said that some things mattered more than money. I knew what they were now, and I had them all. No, I said slowly. I'm not poor, but I was cold. I needed a coat. I swallowed hard. And a friend. A smile broke out on Kimberly's face. I think it matched the one I was wearing. I can teach you how to do flips, you know, I said. We took off our coats so we could turn faster. By the end of recess, Kimberly could go backward and forward and dangle upside down, and she taught me how to do cartwheels out on the open grass of the playground. It was hard, only because we kept falling over in the grass, giggling. We were having so much fun that other kids came over and asked, Can we play too? But when the bell rang, it was Kimberly who scrambled up beside me. We both brushed the grass off and picked up our coats, and then together we ran back into Satter Earth School, where I belonged. And here's a picture here. So do you know what? I think it takes a lot of guts, and it takes being brave to share a secret. You know, something that you think you're not so good at. Like, for instance, I'm dyslexic. I have so, you probably have noticed I had a hard time with that. The name of the school, I even kind of practiced Satter with, I could never really get it. But you know what? It's not a big deal. But since I've been telling people I'm dyslexic, those other ones are going, yeah, I kind of struggle. I struggle with the same thing. I'm dyslexic. And so when you tell people something that's kind of like, I don't want people to know this, that they might, tease me about it or whatever, or I'm not good at this or that, then just know everybody's good at different things. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed this book. I know I really did.